Want to learn some English today? I've just used Ellipsis. I did not say, do you want to learn some English? Just want to learn some English? Easy, right? Not so fast. There's more to Ellipsis than meets the eye. We'll explain it all in this episode of
Aprender Inglés con Reza y Craig.
Hi, I'm Reza.
And my name's Craig.
And with nearly 50 years of teaching experience between the two of us, we'll help you improve your English and take it to the next level. How are you, Craig?
I'm very well, thank you, my friend. How are you?
I'm very well.
Pleased to hear it. If you're a new listener, you're very welcome to the podcast. And if you're back to listen again, thank you for listening. This week, we're starting with a voice message from Mariela from Ecuador, who has 3 more facts for you about her country.
Why do you say 3 more facts?
Because we spoke about Ecuador back in episode 254. Go to inglespodcast.com/254 to listen all about Ecuador. But apparently there are 3 things that we did not mention. So here's Mariela with some extra information.
Hello, Reza and Craig. This is Mariela from Ecuador. I'm really happy because you told about my country and I learned new things, but I would like to add 3 more facts. Do you know that we have the most beautiful roses in the world? That is because they grow up over 2,800 meters, and for that reason they receive more nutrition and have a better development. Do you know that an Ecuadorian company have won more 15 times the International Chocolate Awards? And do you know that the Panama hats are really from Ecuador? Yes, they are. The reason that people call Panama hats is because in Panama was internationalized. Sorry for that pronunciation. One more thing is that we eat guinea pig roasted with potatoes, and it is delicious. I want to ask you one more thing. Can you explain me about conjunctions? I would like to know the difference between neither, either, and in which order I have to put them. Thank you for all that you are doing for us. Bye.
Lovely to hear from you, Mariela. Thank you very much for your feedback on Ecuador. Yes, I did know that Ecuador has some of the most beautiful roses in the world. Did you know that, Reza?
I didn't know. I had no idea. Wow.
Yeah, just one thing, Mariela. Roses, plants, trees, flowers grow. They don't grow up. Children grow up, people grow up, but don't use the phrasal verb grow up with plants and flowers and trees. So the most beautiful roses, some of the most beautiful roses grow in Ecuador. Did you know about the chocolate?
No, again, that also surprises me.
It's very, very popular. Ecuadorian cocoa is the best in the world. It's
yes.
Fantastic cocoa. And some of the best chocolate comes out of Ecuador. And as a chocoholic, I know these things.
Now that you say it means I didn't think about it before, but you've got my memory working again. Now that you say it, yes, I do identify Ecuador with good cocoa. They have high quality cocoa. Mm-hmm. But I didn't know that they actually make chocolate there. I thought it was more for exporting the cocoa beans around the world. So that's interesting. I must try some chocolate made in Ecuador.
It's very, very good. Just one thing, Mariela, be careful of the pronunciation of chocolate. It only has 2 syllables, and you pronounced it with 3. So it's chocolate. Chocolate. Stress the first syllable. Chocolate. And another thing to improve your pronunciation on, guinea pig. The EA at the end is not IA, it's just E. So guinea pig. People eat guinea pigs in Ecuador also.
You also mentioned Panama hats. Like chocolate, Panama was originally a Spanish word, of course, but I'm afraid we've changed the pronunciation in English and we stress the first syllable. We say Panama. In Spanish, you stress the last syllable, but in English, it's Panama hats. So I had no idea that Panama hats are actually from Ecuador. Did you know that?
I did, only because years ago I used to do a pub quiz. I used to do a trivia quiz in a pub in English here in Valencia. And one of the questions that we quite regularly asked are, where do Panama hats come from? And most people write Panama, but no, they do come from Ecuador. So yes, I did know that, but only by chance.
That was a really good message, Mariela, but there's a couple more things I just want to point out. You said nutritions. I can't remember exactly your sentence, but you shouldn't say that. You should say nutrition because that word is uncountable. It cannot be plural. And one more thing, you asked us to give you an explanation. You said, can you explain me about? We wouldn't exactly do it like that. We would say, can you explain something to me? Explain something to me.
And one word, Mariela, that's quite difficult to pronounce, and you tried very well to get it right. You almost got it right. It's international.
Gregor almost got it right as well.
Craig almost got it right as well. It's
You see, it's not easy,
it's
Mariela.
It's not easy. If we can't do it, it's definitely not easy. It's internationalized. Internationalized.
Mariela, your question about neither, either, and things like that, actually, there are already a couple of episodes where we deal with that. If you go back to episode 56 and episode 19, so just go to inglespodcast.com/ and then write the number 56 or 19. In both those episodes, we deal with neither, either, etc.
Thank you so much for your message. What's next, Reza?
We've got another voice message, this time from Europe. It's Maribel from Seville, or Sevilla, as she might say.
Okay, let's listen to Maribel, who's taking an English exam in June.
Hello, Reza and Craig. I am Maribel and I am from Seville in Spain. I'm taking the Expand exam next month of June. I'm sure that it won't have enough time to answer my question for the exam. Anyway, I would appreciate if you talk about it in a podcast, which I found really, really helpful and useful. My problem is with inversions and ellipses. If you have time and you want to talk about it, I would appreciate it. Anyway, I would like to tell you that I found your work really, really interesting, and it's been a great help for me in the last 2 weeks that it was when I met you. Thank you again. Bye.
Thanks, Maribel, for your voice message, and good luck with the exam. I'm not sure if you have taken it yet, but either way, if you have or if you haven't, we hope you have a very good mark and you're very successful in your exam. And we did speak about sentence inversions and inversions in English back in episode 78, Maribel. So go to inglespodcast.com/78 and you'll discover all about inversions and how to use them in English.
Shall we have a look at ellipsis now then, Craig? That was her other doubt.
Yes, let's look at ellipsis and give Maribel and other listeners some help in how ellipsis is used in English. But before we do that, Reza, how could people improve their grammar and maybe get some personal tuition on difficult areas such as ellipsis and inversions?
Well, you could always try out italki. Why would you want to try them out? Well, let me see if I can give you a few positives. There's no travel involved. You can take the lessons from anywhere. You can learn from home, from your office, anywhere where you've got a computer or a tablet or laptop. So there's also no scheduling problems, timetable problems. You do it when it's convenient for you. You want to have a class at 2 o'clock in the morning? With italki, you can. Also, it's very affordable. It's not expensive. It's usually more affordable than offline tutors. You do it online, and how much you pay depends on the teacher you choose. There are different prices of different teachers with different experience. So I'm sure that you can find the right teacher at the right price to suit your needs. What's more, italki are going to give you a $10 credit to pay towards your first lesson if you sign up on our website. You can do that simply by going to the notes, so inglespodcast.com/266. So check out their website, and if you decide to sign up and pay for your first lesson, then italki will give you that $10 credit.
Thank you very much, italki, for sponsoring Aprender Inglés con Reza y Craig, and you can find more details on our website at inglespodcast.com/266.
So, Craig, back to our main topic for today, ellipsis. Or if you prefer, you could say omission, or even leaving something out.
Let's start off with an example. Reza, you're wearing a very nice shirt. How much did that shirt cost you?
65.
So Reza's left something out there. Is it 65 buttons? Did he pay 65 rabbits? Did he pay 65 tomatoes? What do you think he left out in that answer? 65 what? 65 euros, I think. Or was it dollars?
Euros.
Euros. So sometimes it's not necessary to say words, and when we decide not to say the words because the meaning is clear, that can be ellipsis.
Yeah. By the way, that was just an example. We made up the number. And most of my shirts probably cost under 20 euros. There's not a lot of money in podcasting.
That's true. That's true. By the way, Reza's wearing a podcasting T-shirt at the moment, so I'm sure that didn't cost 65 euros.
No, it was free.
It was free. From a podcasting company who doesn't support or sponsor the podcast, I might add.
So we don't have to mention the name.
Let's give another example.
Have another biscuit.
I'd better not. I'm on a diet. What did I leave out there? What did I omit?
Well, he just said, I better not.
Better not what?
I better not have another biscuit. But he doesn't need to repeat the words, have another biscuit. It's obvious. So he just said, I better not.
There's another use of ellipsis, and it's when words can kind of disappear because of the situation. They trail off, which means they disappear. They gradually disappear into silence. Let me give you an example. Through tears of sadness, the coffin was gradually lowered into the ground, and then the rain. So if I stop speaking, I stop the sentence. I'm creating some kind of suspense or anticipation in the text, and that could be another use of ellipsis.
Craig, you wouldn't lend me £2,000, would you?
Yeah, well, you can just...
Oh, I think I know what he's trying to say. He hasn't said it, but he's not going to give me the money, is he? He was probably going to say something like, what were you going to say? You can just...
I can't say that on the
No,
podcast.
we can't say it in the podcast.
It's too rude.
Too rude. So we just have ... puntos suspensivos, and he didn't say the rest.
Also, if somebody insults you, for example, someone says, "You are so ugly. When you were born, the midwife slapped your mother." And you're so offended, you'd say, "Yeah, well, you can just..." And there's an unfinished thought. You don't finish the sentence. You don't finish what you're thinking. You just put those 3 dots. There's one mistake I find, I don't know if you agree, Reza, in students writing, Spanish students writing, where they use these puntos suspensivos, these 3 dots at the end of a list,
Yeah.
instead of writing the word etc.
Yeah.
So they'd say, "I went to the market, I bought some tomatoes, some onions, some potatoes, ... We wouldn't use these dots in that way. We would write etc.
Yes, that's interesting. So Spanish punctuation, Spanish formality of writing seems to permit writing ... an ellipsis for not completing a list. But in English, no. It's only, as we say, for various reasons in English, like to be mysterious, or because you don't want to finish a thought, or to be dramatic. But if it's just a list, just a normal list, then in English you have to write etc. Because if you write ... it looks like you're being unnecessarily dramatic or mysterious. But in Spanish, I know you do it, but in English we don't.
It's very common also in English, in order not to repeat the same verb, if it's in the same sentence, you just don't say it. Here's an example. I went to a restaurant with Reza. I ordered the paella and he the steak. So it's not necessary to repeat the verb ordered. Again, you know, your brain fills in, completes the sentence. So again, I ordered the paella and he the steak. Instead of saying he ordered the steak. It's not necessary.
Or another thing Craig could say, he could say, I ordered the paella, not steak.
The negative.
Yeah, so he's saying that I ordered the paella, I did not order steak. But he can leave out the words I did and ordered. I ordered the paella, not steak.
Or you can ellipse or leave out a full verb phrase. You could say, I'll order the paella, and you can too. What I'm really saying is I'll order the paella and you can order the paella too. But again, those words aren't necessary, so we leave them out. I'll order the paella and you can too.
You notice Craig used the word can. So very often we use a modal or an auxiliary to give the meaning that instead of repeating the main verb, there's going to be an ellipsis. Here's another example. Who ordered the steak? And the answer is, I did. I ordered the steak. But we just repeat the auxiliary. Why did? Because who ordered? Ordered is past simple. So the auxiliary of the past simple is did. I did.
Let me give you another example, Reza, and see if you can find an ellipsis for this. Do you know something, Reza? I could really eat some meatballs for lunch.
Could you?
Or I could too.
Yeah. Could you really eat some meatballs? I'm asking him a question. Or if I agree, I could say, I could too. Or I could say also something like, I bet you could. I bet means I'm sure. I'm sure you could eat those delicious meatballs.
Another example, I'll get something to drink, but I'm not sure what. So that what is really the end of the phrase. I'm not saying I'm not sure what I'll get to drink, because it's not necessary to repeat the same phrase. I'll get something to drink, but I'm not sure what. All of these examples you can find in the show notes at inglespodcast.com/266. Another example, I ordered 2 drinks and Reza 1. One what? Well, 1 drink. He ordered 1 drink, but all of those extra words aren't necessary. So instead of saying I ordered 2 drinks and Reza ordered 1, or Reza ordered 1 drink, we just leave out the extra words and Reza ordered 1. I ordered 2 drinks and Reza 1.
But what you don't know is Craig ordered 2 small beers, dos cañas, and I ordered a very large gin and tonic. But only 1.
No surprises
No
there.
surprise there. Craig Want some coffee?
Love some.
Ah, there was no complete sentence there. I should really have said in complete grammatical structures, do you want some coffee? And Craig, what could you have said?
I would love one, but I just said love one. It's shorter. We're basically lazy people. So when we can leave out words that aren't really necessary for understanding, then we just leave them out. And very often that's what ellipsis is. Maybe you've taken an exam recently and you're waiting for the instructions to start, to begin, and the invigilator, the teacher, says, begin when ready. And there you have a very short expression, which, if you don't use ellipsis, could be begin when you are ready. So instead of saying begin when you are ready, which is a bit long, begin when ready. Everybody understands.
Instead of saying, I hope you have a nice weekend to Craig, well, if there's just me and Craig talking, it's obvious that I hope. So I could just omit the word I and say, hope you have a nice weekend. Or I could even make it shorter. I could just say, have a nice weekend.
Or just nice weekend.
Yeah.
How many times have you left the school and said to someone, hey, nice weekend, have a good one? All ellipsis.
So quite often there are different degrees of ellipsis you can have. You can keep getting shorter and shorter and shorter. As long as the key important words there are there to be understood, you can be really short.
Yeah, as long as the interaction, the conversation doesn't break down and stop, we can be as short as we can possibly be. Let's look at some more examples. Often with that is a word that can be removed without any problems in communication. Here's an example. I knew the neighbours would be noisy today. We're podcasting, so it's obvious. I knew the neighbours would be noisy today. I can also say, I knew that the neighbours would be noisy today. The meaning is exactly the same, but we very often omit and leave out that.
When the word that is joining two parts of a sentence, when it's a conjunction, it's nearly always possible to leave it out, isn't it? Like,
yeah.
He said he was happy. He said that he was happy. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Or, I know you're here. I know that you're here. So you can nearly always leave out that, can't you?
I think it's time for a cup of tea. I think that it's time for a cup of tea.
So far, we've been using ellipsis in just normal sentences. But ellipsis can also be used to show a word or words have been removed from a quote, from a quotation.
Yeah, for example, you could say the best way to improve your English, my old English teacher told me at school, was to read a lot. Well, if you're quoting that, it's not necessary to refer to my old English teacher at my school. That's not really very important. So you could say, here's a quotation from a famous podcaster. The best way to improve your English is to read a lot. And you put ... where my old teacher told me this at school is. So you're making the quotation shorter. You're removing information that's not critical. And everybody knows there's something missing because of those 3 dots. So let me repeat that. The best way to improve your English, my old teacher from my school used to tell me, is to read a lot. Ellipsis, the best way to improve your English, ... is to read a lot. Quotation marks.
Or another thing you could do is, if it's a really, really famous international quotation or a national quotation, let's say that everyone in the United Kingdom knows that quotation, like to be or not to be, that is the question. You could just write to be or not to be ... because everybody knows what comes next. That is the question. So it's so well known that we don't need to finish the quotation, just ... and everybody knows what comes next.
Of course, there's the opposite where you're quoting something that somebody says and maybe they've missed out words as they're speaking that you feel needs to be in text. Then you'd include them in brackets. So the opposite of those 3 dots for ellipsis when you're removing words is to put in words in brackets, in parentheses, that maybe the speaker should have said. And one thing that does remind me very much of Ellipsis, when people make films, there's kind of an equivalent in movie making if you think about it. Imagine we're filming us podcasting at the moment. So there's a video camera here and Reza and I are podcasting, and suddenly there's a ring at the door. Well, we're not going to take the camera, probably, and film Craig taking off his headphones, putting down his notes, walking to the door, walking through the passage, opening the door, and seeing somebody there. In a film, you would cut and just film me opening the door, because it's not necessary to show me walking. So if you like to think of it that way, that's another form of ellipsis, where the brain fills in and completes information that's obvious and you don't show it.
And the effect in speech is just the same as in a film. It avoids boredom.
Yeah.
Because if you were to see every single second of what's really happening in the film, you'd very quickly be bored. We don't want to see somebody walk to the door. It's unnecessary. And we don't want to hear every single word, particularly if it's repetition, is boring. So ellipsis avoids boredom. Ellipsis can become very particular to certain areas or certain countries. For example, not long ago, we were replying to a voice message from Alberto, who lives in Australia. We said to him, "G'day," but really that's a short version of, "I hope you're having a good day," or "good day to you." But it gets reduced in Australia to "G'day," and it's a very common greeting in Australia. Everybody says it.
All right, mate.
In Belfast, where I come from, we've got one. People often greet each other, it's very, very common, with the expression, and I'll exaggerate my accent, "Bougie," which is...
What does that mean?
It's a reduced version because of ellipsis of "how about you?" How about you can mean "how are you?" How about you? So we get rid of the word "how." The word "about," we drop the first letter A, and "you" quite often gets pronounced "ye" in Ireland, sometimes in Scotland as well. So it all reduces to "bout ye."
Let me try it. Bout ye. Did I say it? Okay.
Very good.
Bout ye. Bout ye.
Very, very good. But I doubt if you'll ever hear it outside Northern Ireland, but there everybody knows what it means. So it can be very particular. Craig, can you think of any from the London area?
As a greeting you might hear in some parts of London, right? Right. Which means, all right. Are you all right? Are you okay? How's it going? How are you doing? How are you? All right? Or with mate, amigo. All right, mate, is another greeting with that intonation rising. All right, mate? So it becomes kind of a question. All right, mate? Yeah, I'm all right.
Really, it's the shortened version of "are you all right, mate?"
Mm-hmm.
And have you noticed that quite often, instead of an R sound, it sounds like a W sound? So I'm really exaggerating, but you can hear people say, instead of right, like what, why, it sounds like a W.
What, mate?
Doesn't it? What?
What?
You can really hear that in the London area. What?
Yeah.
It's ellipsis.
I don't know if you'd agree with this ellipsis. I've said this to a couple of Spanish friends and they say, no, we don't do that. But when you're leaving a place or you're saying goodbye, hasta luego, to my ears, sounds like luego. Not hasta luego. The hasta is ellipsed. Do you hear that, or is it just me?
I just about hear it. It's said so softly and quickly that it's as if it's kind of like luego.
Luego.
It's said, but in such a low voice and with no importance, in such a weak form that it's as if it weren't said.
I just hear luego.
Well, it's funny you should mention that, because in different parts of Spain they even say that in different ways.
Uh-huh.
Like I've been in areas of Spain where they say "ta luego."
Yeah.
Tal logo. So it seems that they're beginning with the letter T, but it's hasta. But the as, just forget about that. But they say tal logo. I've heard tal logo as well.
Of course, in English, you might finish and say goodbye and leave somewhere with just see ya, or see you later, or later.
Do you know how to say see ya, as in see you later, in Hungarian? This is quite mind-blowing.
No.
See ya.
Really?
But it's spelled S-Z-I-A.
And it sounds like chair in Spanish.
Yeah.
See ya.
See ya. So in Hungarian, see ya is see ya. But it's spelled S-Z-I-A. I couldn't believe that when I found that out. It really is.
I often try and not fool my students, but get them to expose them to different informal greetings. If I walk into a classroom and say, how's it going? And I say it naturally and quite quickly, they don't catch it. And it's very common when people see each other to make those small expressions to get the conversation started. So some you might not hear regularly are, how's it going? How you doing? How are you doing becomes how you doing? How is it going? How's it going? As Reza said before, all right, mate. Or in Belfast, about ye. Any others you can think of?
In American English,
how y'all doing? We had y'all the other day. How y'all doing?
Just hi y'all. Howdy.
Howdy. That's more of a
howdy.
Cowboy.
How do you do has got reduced to cowboy or southern United States language of howdy. How do you do? Howdy.
And of course in Australia, good day. Good day. Good day.
You can have fun with ellipsis if you understand what the missing bit is. And it can be kind of fun if it makes you think. For example, I have a friend from London and she's got quite a kind of Cockney, that very broad, very, very specifically London working class accent.
Like me.
No. Craig hasn't really. He's got, you could tell Craig's from the kind of southeast of England, but my friend is really exaggerated. And she has a t-shirt and it always makes me laugh when I see it. It says on it, King Mental. And you might think, is that the name of a pub group or something like that? But there's a lesion there.
There's ellipsis. So there's ellipsis at the beginning of King.
And I can't say because it's a podcast what's missing, but I find it really funny. King Mental, mate. King Mental.
That's a funny t-shirt.
It's very London, isn't it?
Yeah, very
King
London.
Mental.
If you have a comment or question about this podcast or anything related to English pronunciation, grammar, vocabulary, collocation, idioms, anything at all, we are more than happy to talk about it on this podcast. Please send us a voice message to www.speakpipe.com/Ingles podcast. Or if you prefer to reach us by email, Reza, how can they get in touch?
You can get me at belfastreza@gmail.com or Craig, he's at craig@inglespodcast.com.
If you are interested in downloading a paid audio course to improve your English, go to store.mansioningles.net. And before we go, we'd like to say a huge thank you to our wonderful Patreon supporters who continue to support the transcriptions, which are lovingly transcribed by Angelica. And if you would like to join the Patreon program, go to patreon.com/Ingles podcast, where for a minimum of $1 per month, you can join the team and get instant access to recent transcriptions.
We haven't got time to thank all our Patreon supporters by name, but we will just mention our most recent supporters. A big thank you to Geraldine Islas, Ramon Menocal, Esteban, and Rafael. Thank you for your generosity. Those are our latest Patreon supporters.
On next week's episode, in response to a listener question, we have some vocabulary connected to business English, particularly business vocabulary in sales. Please join us for that next week. Thank you very much for being with us this week. Until then, it's goodbye from me.
And bye-bye from me.
And hope you have a wonderful week.
Nice one.
Ellipsis. We hope you have a wonderful week. Take care. The music in this podcast is by Pitts. The track is called See You Later.